The last can of formula was a hollow cylinder of failure. Alara stared at it, the metallic emptiness echoing the cavern in her stomach. Outside, the rain lashed against the window of their tiny apartment, a miserable soundtrack to her desperation. In the other room, her 10-month-old son, Leo, stirred in his crib, his soft coos a ticking clock counting down to hunger. She checked her bank account on her cracked phone screen for the 10th time, hoping for a miracle. $7.32. Not enough for formula. Not enough for anything. Tears pricked her eyes, hot and shameful. She had promised herself she would never be in this position. She had a degree in finance, a sharp mind, and a work ethic forged in steel. But a sudden layoff, a sick child, and a mountain of medical bills had eroded her savings until nothing was left but pride, and even that was crumbling. There was one last option, one she had sworn she would never take. Her estranged brother, Mark. He owed her, in a way, but asking felt like begging. Her fingers trembled as she typed out the text, each word a small surrender. Mark, it's Alara. I know we haven't talked. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't an emergency. Leo needs formula. Could you possibly spare $50? I'll pay you back next week, I promise. She stared at the message, her thumb hovering over the send button. It was humiliating. It was everything she had fought against becoming. Taking a shaky breath, she pressed send and tossed the phone onto the worn sofa cushion, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She had done it. She had swallowed her pride for her son. A small, sad sound escaped her lips. Now, she just had to wait and pray he would answer. Across the city, in a penthouse office that overlooked the storm-swept skyline, Damien Thorne looked at his phone. A text from an unknown number had just appeared. He rarely received messages from anyone not in his contacts, and his first instinct was to delete it. But something made him pause. The raw, desperate plea was so out of place amidst his usual stream of corporate communications. Leo needs formula. The name struck him like a physical blow, stealing the air from his lungs. Leo. He read the message again. The sender was clearly mistaken, but the quiet dignity in the words, the promise to pay back a meager $50, spoke of a pride stretched to its breaking point. He thought of another Leo. His Leo. Gone for 3 years now, but the ache was as fresh as the rain on the glass. He had all the money in the world, enough to buy entire companies, but he could not buy back one more day, one more smile. This message, this accidental cry for help, felt like a sign. A whisper from a past he could never escape. He could not save his son, but maybe, just maybe, he could help this one. Alara's phone buzzed a few minutes later. Her heart leaped into her throat. She snatched it up, her hands clammy. It was a reply, but not from Mark. I believe you have the wrong number, the text read. But I would like to help. What is your address? Confusion washed over her, quickly followed by suspicion. Who was this? Some kind of scam? A cruel joke? Her fingers flew across the screen. Who is this? This is not a game. I'm sorry to have bothered you. The reply was instantaneous. My name is Damien. It is not a game. I assure you. Your son should not go hungry. Please, allow me to send a courier with what you need. Damien. The name was generic enough, but the confident, direct tone was unsettling. He was not asking, he was stating. Alara hesitated. Her pride screamed at her to refuse, to tell this stranger to mind his own business. But then Leo whimpered from his crib, a soft, hungry sound that shattered her resolve. What did she have left to lose? With a sense of surreal detachment, she typed in her address and sent it. The moment she did, a wave of regret and fear washed over her. What had she just done? Less than an hour later, a knock echoed through her small apartment. Peeking through the peephole, she saw a uniformed courier standing in the hallway, holding a large box. She cautiously opened the door. He asked for her by name, had her sign a tablet, and handed over the package before leaving. It was heavy. Inside, nestled among packing peanuts, were a dozen large cans of the specific, expensive formula Leo needed, packs of diapers, wipes, and a small, plain white envelope. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside was a cashier's check. Not for $50. It was for $50,000. Alara sank onto her sofa, the check fluttering from her numb fingers. This was impossible. It was a mistake. $50,000? This was more than a kind gesture. It was an absurdity. The fear returned, stronger this time. Nobody just gave away this kind of money. There had to be a catch. There was always a catch. Her phone buzzed again. It was him. I hope that is sufficient for now. I also took the liberty of looking into your professional background. Your resume is impressive. I have a position for a junior financial analyst at my company. The salary is more than double your previous one, with full benefits. My assistant will call you tomorrow to arrange an interview, should you be interested. Her blood ran cold. He had looked her up. He knew who she was. This was not a random act of kindness. This was something else entirely. She felt a terrifying sense of being trapped, of a powerful, unseen force suddenly taking control of her life. Who are you? She typed back, her fear turning to anger. Why are you doing this? My name is Damien Thorne. My company is Thorne Industries. As for why, it's complicated. Perhaps we can discuss it at your interview. Damien Thorne. The Damien Thorne, CEO of the largest tech conglomerate in the country. A billionaire recluse famous for his ruthless business acumen and for disappearing from public life after a personal tragedy years ago. Alara felt dizzy. She had accidentally texted one of the most powerful men in the world. He was offering her a lifeline, but it felt more like a gilded cage. The next day, she went to the interview. Pride warred with practicality, but Leo's gurgling, happy sounds as he drank his new formula made the decision for her. The Thorne Industries tower was a monument of glass and steel that scraped the sky. Inside, she felt small and out of place. She was escorted directly to the top floor, to Damien Thorne's personal office. He was not what she expected. He was younger, with a quiet intensity in his dark eyes that seemed to hold a deep, unshakable sadness. He wore a simple gray suit, but it fit him with an understated perfection that screamed wealth. Mr. Thorne, she began, her voice steadier than she felt. I cannot accept your money. Or this job. I don't understand what you want from me. Damien gestured to the chair opposite his desk. Please sit, Alara, and call me Damien. I want nothing from you. Nothing you are imagining, at least. She remained standing. Then why? Why go to such lengths for a complete stranger who texted you by mistake? Her voice trembled with suspicion. People like you don't do things like this without a reason. He looked down at his hands, his stoic facade cracking for just a moment. A flicker of profound pain crossed his features. You're right, he said, his voice low. I do have a reason. This was it. The catch. She braced herself. He looked up, and his eyes met hers. They were filled not with predatory intent, but with a grief so raw it was startling. 3 years ago, my wife, Amelia, and I had a son. We named him Leo. Alara's breath caught in her throat. He was perfect, Damien continued, his voice thick with emotion. But he was born with a heart defect we didn't know about. We had him for 6 beautiful, terrifying months. And then we lost him. He paused, composing himself. When your text came through, seeing that name, linked to a mother's desperate plea to feed her child, it felt like the universe was giving me a chance to do something. To honor my son's memory. The money, the job, it isn't for you, not really. It's for him. It's what I would have wanted for my Leo, for his mother. Security, a future, a life without the kind of fear you were feeling last night. The story washed over Alara, dismantling her defenses one by one. The suspicion in her heart dissolved, replaced by a wave of unexpected, overwhelming empathy. His hidden motivation was not greed or control, it was grief. A grief she, as a mother, could understand in its most primal form. Tears welled in her eyes, for him, for his lost wife, and for the tiny baby boy he never got to see grow up. I'm so sorry, she whispered, finally sinking into the chair. The fight had gone out of her. Don't be, he said softly. Just take the job. You've earned it. Your qualifications are exceptional. This is not charity. It's an opportunity. For both of us, I think. She took the job, and she thrived. The work was challenging, and for the first time in years, Alara felt her mind come alive. She was more than just a struggling mother. She was a skilled analyst, and Damien Thorne recognized it. He became her mentor, treating her with a respectful distance that slowly, over months, blossomed into a quiet friendship. They spoke mostly of work, but sometimes he would ask about Leo, and a sad, gentle smile would touch his lips as she shared a story or a photo. He never overstepped, never presumed. He was simply her boss, a kind, wounded man who had given her a second chance. It was during a quarterly audit that she found it. A tiny discrepancy. A rounding error that should not exist. She dug deeper, following the digital thread through encrypted files and shadow accounts. What she uncovered was a sophisticated scheme, siphoning millions of dollars from a key research and development project into an offshore account. All evidence pointed to one man, Marcus Vance, the company's ambitious chief operating officer and Damien's longtime internal rival. She brought her findings to Damien, her heart pounding. This was dangerous. Marcus was a powerful, vindictive man. Damien's face was grim as he reviewed her data. I've suspected him for years, he admitted. But he's clever. He covers his tracks. This is the first real proof I've ever had. You did well, Alara, but you've also put yourself in danger. His words proved prophetic. The next day, things began to happen. A crucial file vanished from her computer. A rumor started circulating about her special relationship with the CEO. Then came the anonymous email, a picture of Leo playing at his daycare, with a simple, chilling message, "Cute kid." It would be a shame if something happened to his mom. Panic seized her. This was no longer about corporate espionage. It was about her son's safety. She rushed to Damien's office, the threatening email displayed on her phone. His face hardened into a mask of cold fury. "That's it," he said, his voice dangerously calm. "He's crossed the line. There's an emergency board meeting in Geneva in 2 days to approve the final funding for that R&D project. Marcus plans to sabotage it from within after he's pushed me out. We're going to go there and expose him. And you and Leo are coming with me. I won't let you out of my sight until this is over." The whirlwind of the next 24 hours was a blur. Before she knew it, Alara was buckling Leo into a plush seat aboard the Thorn Industries private jet. The cabin was a silent, luxurious cocoon, a world away from her tiny apartment. Damien worked tirelessly, his jaw set, coordinating with his legal team over a satellite phone while Alara tried to keep a restless Leo entertained. The pressure was immense. The future of the company, and their safety, rested on what would happen in Geneva. Exhaustion finally claimed her as the jet cruised through the dark sky. Her head grew heavy, and despite her best efforts to stay awake, it slumped sideways, coming to rest on Damien's shoulder. She drifted into a fitful sleep, her dreams a chaotic mix of spreadsheets and her son's smiling face. She awoke with a start, disoriented. The cabin lights were dim. Leo was sleeping peacefully in the bassinet beside her, and a soft cashmere blanket was draped over her. Her head was still on Damien's shoulder. He hadn't moved her. He was staring out the window, his profile etched against the moonlit clouds. As she stirred, she glanced down at his hand, which rested on the armrest between them. And then she saw it. On the fourth finger of his right hand, he wore a simple, unadorned gold band. It was worn with age, the metal soft and gleaming faintly in the dim light. It was a wedding ring. He still wore it, not on the traditional left hand, but on his right, a quiet, constant tribute to the woman and the life he had lost. In that moment, any lingering trace of doubt she might have harbored about his character vanished forever. This was not a man who played games with people's hearts. He was a man who loved so deeply that even death could not break his bond. Her own heart ached with a sudden, fierce surge of emotion, gratitude, admiration, and something more, something she was not yet ready to name. He turned his head, his gaze meeting hers. He did not seem surprised to find her awake. "I'm sorry," she whispered, starting to sit up. "I didn't mean to." "Don't be," he said, his voice a low rumble. "Rest. We have a long day ahead of us." He didn't move away, and after a moment's hesitation, she let her head rest back against his shoulder, finding an unexpected comfort in his solid presence. The board meeting was as tense as she had imagined. It was held in a sterile, intimidating room with a panoramic view of the lake. Marcus Vance was charming and confident, presenting a doctored report that painted Damien as a negligent and distracted leader. Then it was their turn. Damien spoke first, laying the groundwork with cold, hard facts about the company's performance. Then he turned the floor over to her. "The board will now hear from Alara Vance, the analyst who uncovered the truth," he announced, deliberately using the wrong last name. A flicker of confusion crossed Marcus's face. Alara stood, her legs shaking but her voice clear. She walked them through the data, her presentation concise and irrefutable. She showed them the hidden ledgers, the offshore transfers, the digital fingerprints that all led directly to Marcus. The color drained from his face. "This is absurd," he blustered. "She's a nobody. A glorified secretary the CEO is sleeping with. She fabricated this entire story. She is the sharpest financial mind I have ever worked with." Damien cut in, his voice like ice. "And she is the mother of a child you threatened. A child who happens to share the same name as my late son. You thought you were threatening my employee, Marcus, but you were threatening my family." The finality in his voice silenced the room. The evidence was undeniable. The motive was clear. Marcus was ruined. As security escorted him from the room, he shot Alara a look of pure hatred. Damien moved instinctively, stepping partially in front of her as if to shield her from the venom in the man's gaze. The board voted unanimously. The project was secure. The company was safe. That night, standing on the balcony of their hotel suite overlooking the glittering lights of Geneva, the adrenaline finally faded, leaving a quiet intimacy in its place. Leo was asleep inside. "You were incredible today," Damien said, standing beside her. "We were," she corrected softly. "Thank you, Damien. For everything. For trusting me. For protecting us." He turned to face her, his expression serious. "Alara, when I first got your text, I thought I was doing something for the memory of my son. But I was wrong. All this time, I think I was doing it for me. You and Leo, you brought life back into my world. You made me feel again." He gently took her hand. "I know this is fast, but I've never been more certain of anything. I love you." Tears streamed down her face, but for the first time in a very long time, they were tears of pure joy. "I love you too," she whispered. 1 year later, Alara stood on another balcony, this one attached to the home she now shared with Damien. She was no longer a junior analyst, but the chief financial officer of Thorn Industries. Below, the company's annual charity gala was in full swing in their sprawling backyard. She watched Damien laughing as he chased a giggling, toddling Leo across the lawn. Her life was unrecognizable from the desperate, lonely existence she had known. Damien scooped Leo into his arms and walked over to her, his eyes shining with a love that still took her breath away. "He's getting fast," Damien said, kissing Leo's head. "He gets it from his mother," Alara teased. Damien smiled, his gaze turning serious. He reached into his pocket. "Alara," he began, his voice suddenly thick. "That wrong number was the single greatest mistake that ever happened to me. It led me to you. It gave me a family again." He knelt on one knee, holding out a simple, elegant diamond ring. On his right hand, the worn gold band still rested. "Will you make our family official? Will you marry me?" With Leo babbling happily in her arms and the man she loved at her feet, Alara looked out at the life they had built. It was a life born from a desperate text, a stranger's grief, and the miraculous intersection of two broken hearts. It was more than she had ever dared to dream of. "Yes," she said, her voice filled with a profound, unshakable certainty. 1,000 times yes.